Hi everyone and welcome to Newegg TV. My name is Paul. Today I'm going to be doing an unboxing and overview of this new motherboard from ASRock. This is the X79 Extreme11.
Paul, I have the Extreme 9 here. Why didn't they just take the Extreme 9 and make it faster?
This one goes to 11. Alright, so we're going to start off with a closer look at the retail box for some specs. And this is an X79 motherboard, which means it is Intel socket 2011. It supports Sandy Bridge E processors, and those are the highest end enthusiast level processors available from Intel. Also with this board, well, you get, of course, Windows 7 compatibility, Crossfire X. You can do 4-way Crossfire X, 4-way NVIDIA SLI support, and then, of course, the Intel Sandy Bridge E processors, X79 chipset, which adds a lot of functionality. I actually have some specs here on the side of the box I wanted to read off. This is a CEB form factor motherboard, so make sure you have enough room for it in your case. That is a server standard. LGA 2011, you get 8 DDR3 DIMM slots, supports overclock memory speeds up to 2500, 7 PCI Express 3.0 X16 slots, Creative Sound Core 3D 7.1 channel audio, PCI Express dual LAN from Broadcom, 10 SATA 3, 8 of those being SAS ports, more on that, 2 eSATA, 4 SATA 2, 8 USB 3, 14 USB 2, and if that's not enough, there's also a big flap here. There's lots of specs on this motherboard. It's really stacked. Alright, so up here at the top, 4-way SLI and Crossfire X. Not only is it 4-way SLI and Crossfire X, but they have not one, but two PLX PEX8747 chips on the board. That's going to give you more PCI Express lanes, which means that all the PCIe on the board is all 16X, so you get just a crazy amount of PCI Express bandwidth. Below that, we also have the power design. You have 24 plus 2-phase power delivery for your CPU as well as for your memory. It's all digital power delivery. Again, there's an indicator of the 8 DDR3 slots. It is quad channel memory supported by the internal memory controller on the Sandy Bridge E processor. You get dual stack MOSFETs for power delivery, and there's some more information on that if you want to pause and read it. You get just an insane amount of serial ATA connectivity on the board, and I'll show you this once I get it out of the box, but that is by way of a LSI controller. You actually have a high-end LSI Mega RAID controller integrated onto the board. And then finally you also have really high-end audio. So you get Creative Sound Core 3D audio with a premium headset amplifier that can support up to 250 ohm impedance high-end headsets. And that's not all. We have more information on the back of the box. And guess what? This is all different information from what I just told you. So you have some ASRock software utilities up here, the XFast. So XFast RAM is simply a RAM disk utility. So if you install lots and lots of RAM, you can use that to set up a RAM disk. It's great for use with Photoshop or high-end workstation type applications. XFast LAN can increase your internet speeds, and this does have dual Broadcom PCIe NICs, and it does support teamings to double up your internet bandwidth. And then XFast USB, which can give you up to 5 times faster performance on your USB 3.0 ports. Alright, almost done with the box, guys, I promise. Premium gold capacitors are used throughout, 2.5 times the lifetime of standard capacitors. Again, next-gen PCIe 3.0. That gives you 8.0 gigatransfers per second. PCIe Gen 3 is also extremely more efficient than PCIe Gen 2. I apologize for my poor grammar. 98.5% encoding efficiency. Also backwards compatible with PCIe Gen 2, so don't worry if you got a Gen 2 card, you can install it on this board. 8 USB 3.0, 4 in the front, 4 in the back. You have Scout mode available, and that is with included audio, which will let you hear your enemies from further away as they're sneaking up on you. ASRock OMG. That's not, oh my god, that's Online Management Guard, which is simply a utility that lets you turn your internet on and off. So it's a protective measure if you have, for instance, youngsters who you're going to have access to your computer. You can actually flash your UEFI by automatically detecting and downloading your UEFI update from the internet. And down here in the lower left, we have Easy RAID Installer. So if you've ever installed, for instance, onto a RAID array, you know that Windows might not immediately recognize that RAID array. And sometimes you might not have an optical drive these days, so this will allow you to install your RAID driver onto a USB drive to easily have it recognized by your OS installation. Interactive UEFI, which is a unique feature which actually gives not just visual effects but audio effects to the UEFI. UEFI also has a system browser which gives you a visual layout of the motherboard to help you determine what products or what hardware you have connected. There's some more info on the Broadcom dual LAN. It does support teaming, so you can double up your internet speed. And lastly, on the right side, we have some information about some included software. Next up, we will have some accessories in this separate little black box, and we're going to start off with this guy, which I've seen with a few different ASRock motherboards, but this is a little value-add item. It's a 3.5-inch front panel bay adapter. So it's got a black front panel face, so it should match with a lot of cases that are out there these days. It has a 20-pin USB 3.0 connector right there. You can plug into the motherboard. Gives you a couple USB 3.0 front panel plugs, which is very handy. Also doubles as a drive bay for a 2.5-inch drive, so you can mount a 2.5-inch drive to it right there and give yourself another drive slot for an SSD or a notebook hard drive if you got those lying around. You also have a driver disk here, so this will have all the drivers. You should not use this disk except maybe to load your LAN drivers if you need internet connectivity. You should go over to the ASRock website and you should download the latest versions of the drivers because those are much better than the ones that existed when the disk was stamped. Here you have your quick installation guide, which is quite thick for a quick installation guide. Is this one language? No, it's multiple languages. That's okay. Multiple languages, as you can see, since I flipped through that all quickly. But the installation guide you should keep on hand as you're doing your build. It has all the detailed specs listed inside. It also has picture guides of installing your processor and other computer building tips. Also important information such as where to install your DIMMs, because that is kind of particular with this board. You don't want to plug them into the right slots, so you make sure you boot up okay. Here's a little supplemental information about the XFast LAN utility. Here is the software manual, so that's your software setup guide, again for XFast, as well as the other software utilities for overclocking, in operating system based overclocking guides, all detailed right there. Next we have a lot more accessories in here. Ooh, this is fun. Okay, several different types of SLI bridges, and let me just get all this laid out here. Lots of SLI bridges. Okay. This is an input-output shield. Very nice to have. One of the first things you should do when you're doing a computer build is install your input-output shield. It's got a black base. They're also color-coded, so you can tell which plugs are which. You get a total of 6 serial ATA cables. They're all Rev 3 compatible, so 6 gigabit per second. It looks like if these packs are all the same, yes, you get 3 cables that have straight plugs on both ends, and then you get 3 cables that have a straight plug and a 90-degree angle plug. So nice versatile collection of serial ATA cables. Here's a rear panel bracket, and I can only assume that this is an alternative method for your front panel adapter, 3.5-inch adapter there. So if you don't have a front panel available, or if you want to install a couple more USB 3 on the back, you can simply remove this little adapter from that front panel adapter, connect it to the bracket with the included screws, and then you can at least give yourself USB 3 or more USB 3 on the back. Look, they've included some Molex to serial ATA adapters. These are awesome. I have a very large collection of those, and yet I still seem to find myself needing them all the time. Next you have SLI bridges of various lengths. This is a 3-way SLI bridge. They're all packaged up here, so you can't really see them. Alright, here's the included SLI bridges. Again, if you are going to be going with an AMD Crossfire X solution, those types of bridges are usually included with the video cards. Also, if you are going to go with a full actual 4-way SLI or Crossfire solution, those bridges are sold separately. So these are all rigid PCB style bridges. You'll notice that there's nothing printed on them, so I kind of like that. I find that if a bridge doesn't look nice, it should at least lay low. It does have some printing on that side, so you can see that's a 3-way SLI bridge if you're going to go 3-way SLI. 2 double slot spacing, so you are going to need to use 2 slot spaced cards. You also have a longer bridge there, and then you also have another couple 2 slot spacing bridges. And now we're moving on to the motherboard itself, and as you guys can probably tell, this board has a lot going on, so I'm going to do my best to demystify as much of it as possible for you. First off, the color scheme. It is primarily black. There are also gold capacitors scattered all over the board, so you'll notice there are gold highlights as well as some silver ASRock gold logo right there, as well as up there on the power delivery heatsink. I'm just going to flip over to the back of the board here really quick to give you a look. As you can see, it's got a black PCB, which I'm getting a nice reflection on right now. And then up at the top, you actually have a support bracket here that's right underneath that heatsink for the power delivery. I should also note that the heatsinks on the board are connected with Phillips head screws, so you can remove those if it becomes necessary. Back here on the front of the board, and just get it stable. We're going to start off by talking about fan headers. You get a total of 6. 2 of them are specified for the CPU, so you get a 4-pin CPU fan header right here, another 3-pin supplemental CPU fan header right next to that. You also have 3 more chassis fan headers. There's a 3-pin one right here, a 3-pin one down here. Wait, no, that's a 4-pin. 4-pin one down here at the front. And then you also have another 3-pin right here below the debug LED. Finally, you have a power fan 3-pin header that's right up here on the upper left. Next up, we're going to go over the board in detail. We're going to talk about the headers and plugs and connectors. We're going to start off way down here in the bottom right side. So apart from that 4-pin chassis fan header that I just pointed out to you, you also have an infrared header, and then you have 3 USB 2.0 headers. All 3 of these are USB 2.0, so you can use those to connect front panel USB 2.0s. They also have surface-mounted reset and power buttons, so you can easily turn the board on and off if you're doing an outside-of-the-box build. Next to that, you have the Dr. Debug LED, which is the ASRock name for their debug LED. Very handy, especially if you're trying to troubleshoot initial configuration issues, because as the board cycles through post, different LED codes will be displayed right there, and if you have a hard stop on anything, you should be able to read off that LED and see what component might have been causing the problem. Below that and to the left are all your front panel connectors, so you actually have a speaker header. Let me lift this up a little bit so you guys can get a better look at the labeling. So you got a speaker header, LED header, and then the rest of your front panel hard drive LED reset buttons and whatnot right there. Next to that, you actually have a Molex plug. And if I angle this up a little bit, you can probably see it better. There's the Molex connector. You actually have 2 of these on the board. One is there at the bottom of the PCI Express slots. The other is up at the top of the PCI Express slots. And that is because PCI Express only has a given amount of power available. And if you are going to be plugging in as many video cards or other add-on PCI Express cards as this board is capable of handling, you might need some extra power delivery. If you have a simpler setup going on and not as many add-on cards, you probably can go without plugging in those Molex plugs. But again, if you're maxing out the board, best to plug those in to provide as much power as possible. To the left of that, you have a clear CMOS header, so you can use the old school header method to clear your CMOS. Another infrared header next to that, and then you also have a 1394, that's a FireWire header, which is right underneath that little plastic cover. On the far left of the board, you have the front panel audio connector right there, so you can use that to enable front panel mic and headphones. Directly above it, that little 2-pin header is an HDMI SPDIF digital sound header. Above that, you have Soundcore 3D. You notice that little protective cover on there. This is primarily your audio componentry that's on this side of the board. Again, Soundcore 3D supports 7.1 channel HD audio. It supports THX True Studio Pro, Crystal Voice, Scout Mode, EAX versions 1 through 5, as well as the premium headphone amplifier, which supports 250 ohm impedance headphone connections. Next, let's move on to one of the main events of this motherboard, which is your PCI Express slots. Look at them all. They're all the same. That's because they're all full-length 16X PCI Express slots. And every other one is wired up fully for 16X. So your top one, number 1, number 3, number 5, and number 7, you can use for 2-way, 3-way, or 4-way Crossfire X or SLI solutions. Now, if you're familiar with PCI Express and bandwidth and the availability of bandwidth between the PCI Express slots here and the PCI Express controller that's part of your Sandy Bridge E CPU, you might say that's too much. There's too much PCI Express going on here. There's not enough bandwidth. Well, that's part of what I showed you guys on the retail box, which is that right under here and right under here, you can't really see them. They're sort of integrated as part of the chipset heat spreader. you have two of those PLX Gen 3 chips. They're PEX 8747, and those provide additional PCI Express lanes. So by routing through here, you can actually get full 16X with a 4-card SLI or Crossfire X solution. Now there's other different configurations you can do. For instance, if you wanted to set up some sort of crazy rendering system with this, you could install all 7 cards with, say, rendering video cards if you had single slot cards, and you do have other configurations options available. The other slots, apart from the 1, 3, 5, and 7, the 2, 4, and 6 slots are wired up for X8 compatibility. So if you do happen to do something like that, you can set 16X on the top slot and then 8X on all of the other ones. So crazy amount of PCI Express bandwidth here for your video card needs or any other types of high-end add-on cards that you might need to install. That said, let's move on over here to the right. We do have the X79 chipset integrated as part of this board, which brings a lot of the functionality to bear. They do have this sort of combo heatsink above this, and you might also notice that this is a fairly large heatsink. It's because it's not just a PCI, it's not just the X79 chip that's underneath there. You have another chip that's underneath there, and I'm actually going to just pop up the manual right there. So see, there's your PLX chips, there's your X79, there's your LSI 2308. Mega RAID controller chip. So you get a secondary Mega RAID controller chip here, and that's why over here you have the most insane amount of serial ATA ports I've ever seen integrated onto a single motherboard. That said, let me flip this on its side. Oh, I should mention there's a little fan there. So the fan will not rotate if it's not necessary, if the chip's not getting hot enough, and it is intelligent enough to turn on when you need it, so it will reduce some of the noise. So all 8 of these serial ATA ports here on the left side are controlled by that add-on LSI RAID controller, the SAS 2308. They are both SAS and serial ATA compatible, so if you have SAS drives, you can connect them here. If you want to go with the higher end setup, or you just have SAS drives that you need somewhere to do with them. Supports SAS and SATA 3, so you get 6 gigabits per second connectivity via each port. And then that controller does support RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 1E, and RAID 10. Also native command queuing and hot plug, all the goodness that you would typically expect of your serial ATA ports. Now the ports here on the right side are controlled by the X79 chipset. And you'll notice they put a little sticker on there that says, for better performance and shorter boot up time, we suggest connecting the hard drive on SATA 3 port 0 to 1 or SATA 2 port 0 to 3 as a boot device, and that's simply because without the sort of middleman of an additional controller like the LSI controller, you get a bit better response time typically on the native ports. So again, you have serial ATA Rev 3 on the 2 gray ports here on the right side. You also get serial ATA Rev 2 on the 4 ports right here, so that's 3 gigabits per second there, 6 gigabits per second there, and the X79 peripheral controller hub, the C600 that's built in there for SATA controller, also supports RAID. You can do RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 5, and RAID 10. Also supports Intel's rapid storage technology, so you can use that for SSD caching and the like. Moving up the side of the board, we have 2 USB 3.0 front panel connectors, 20-pin connectors right there. Above that, you have your primary motherboard power connector, so 24-pin connector right there. And then to the left of that, you have the CPU socket, socket 2011, and all 8 of your DIMM slots. Now, the socket will support Intel Core i7 processors, so Sandy Bridge E. Also supports Xeon processors, and depending on what processor you have there, if you go with the Xeon, you can actually have support for DDR3 ECC unbuffered memory with an E5 series Xeon processor. If you go with the standard consumer processor, you do still, of course, get DDR3 support as well as quad channel. So you're going to want to install your memory in sets of 4. You can reference the manuals to know which of these ports you will need to populate to make use of quad channel. And then, of course, the socket's in the middle. It's got a cover over it. Make sure you're very careful with that socket. Here's the Molex connector that I pointed out to you guys, the other one at the bottom, so that's going to provide supplemental power to your PCI Express lanes. Above here we have a heat sink, and that's for your 24 plus 2-phase power delivery. It provides power to the CPU as well as to the memory. Up here at the top you have 2 8-pin supplemental CPU power connectors, so plenty of power delivery for the processor. And then lastly, I'm going to flip this over and talk about the inputs and outputs. So you have USB 2.0 first off, lots of those, 2, 4, 6, 8. You have a PS2 connector right there for a mouse or a keyboard, clear CMOS button. There are your two Broadcom NICs. Again, they do support teaming. You have a FireWire port, 4 more USB 3.0 ports, 2 more Serial ATA Rev 3 connectors right there, so you can plug in some eSATA. And then finally, there is the analog audio outputs for your Soundcore 3D audio, 7.1 supported, as well as a Toslink optical audio out. And that's going to wrap it up for this video, guys. We hope you enjoyed. Once again, this has been the ASRock X79 Extreme11. I'm Paul with Newegg TV. If you enjoyed today's video, you can head over to our Newegg YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe for more tech videos. And remember, if you need that extra push over the cliff, go for the ASRock X79 Extreme11.